Welcome back. Time to bring in our panel right now. Joining us this week, Mike Murphy, Rima Shahid, Robin Winston, and Tony Samuel. Let's start with Tony, who is vice chair for the Indiana Trump campaign in 2016. Tony, this week, the ascertainment process, the transition finally became official in many ways for President-elect Biden. What took so long, and how do you respond to those who called the president's refusal to concede a troubling moment for our democracy?
I don't think it was as big a deal as the national media has made it out to be. It's the transition's on its way. You know, Joe Biden's been in D.C. for 47 years, and he was vice president for 8 years. So I think he knows his way around the White House. He's also, regarding the transition, picking the same folks that were part of the Obama-Biden administration. It's really the empire striking back. You remember these guys? Well, these are the folks that that Biden's putting in to his national security team. These are the same people that let Russia steal Crimea from the Ukraine. They're the same people with the bad Iran deal that gave billions and billions of dollars to Iran. They're the same people that cozied up to the Castros in Cuba. They're the same folks that allowed NATO and other European countries to take advantage of us and take more money or spend less money than they should in defense of their own countries. I could go on and on. They're the same people that allowed ISIS to take over Iraq and part of Syria. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of Biden remorse is what I call it, what I've heard others call it. And you're seeing that also from the squad and the far left progressives. They're not happy with these picks. They're not happy with his OMB director. You're going to see a lot more of that coming from the left.
I know you love the Star Wars props, as always. Let's turn to Rima Shahid with Women for Change Indiana. Rima, I want to get your response to that and also what this transition means for women in America. It appears a number of women will be making history, not just the vice president, but also the new DNI and perhaps Janet Yellen, who could become the first woman to be chosen as Treasury Secretary.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know if we're going to have time for winners and losers this week, but my winner is going to be Tony for bringing the props amidst everything that's happening. So thanks, Tony, for the props today. I think that this is a moment where we're going to see the United States return to normalcy. The United States, after 4 years of chaos, you're going to see the United States regain its position in the world and have some stability that's long needed that we lost during these last 4 years. And President-elect Biden is really doing what he said he's going to do, and that is surround himself with moderate folks and women who should have long been part of this conversation through prior administrations and were left out. And you're going to see these folks come together and really make sure that America and the American people that have been very loud and clear in making their selection. I think that, just pushing back a little bit, I think the number of people that came out and voted showed that there was a remorse because of the outgoing president, not because of the incoming president. And that's very true. And I'm really excited for all the women that are now having these positions and all the young girls, that because representation matters and seeing these women in these positions matters, and you're going to see that's having a long-lasting multi-generational effect.
Okay, let's bring in former GOP lawmaker Mike Murphy. Mike, you had that report from Carl Bernstein that some 20 Republican senators, quote, despised the president. According to his reporting, Senators Young and Braun among them, though it's something they have both tried to deny and push back on this week. Where is the GOP now as we move into this post-Trump world?
I think the GOP is in the midst of a long period of navel gazing, quite frankly. You know, the voters did not reject, I want to make sure you understand, the voters did not reject Trump's policies. They rejected Trump. In 2024, we will elect a conservative Republican president, whether it's Mike Pence, Rick Scott, Ben Sasse, Nikki Haley. There's 5 or 6 or 7, which all make great conservative presidents. Trump was not a conservative, and some people like to think he was. He wasn't. The hero this week, the hero of the Republican Party this week, should be Aaron Van Langeveld, the Michigan canvasser who certified and stood up against all this national pressure, certified the election as he should have by the rule of law. That man committed what I think is the civilian version of earning the Medal of Honor, because his career is gone now, but he stood up for the rule of law.
Okay. Finally, Robin Winston, former state party chair for the Indiana Democrats. Your response to that, but also I want to get your sense of where things stand now for for Democrats, both on the national level and here in Indiana, where another tough election has state Democrats looking for new leadership and a new party chair.
Well, I'm uniquely qualified to talk about being a party chair. I was one when Frank O'Bannon was governor. We have to rebuild the party by taking our campaign to all 92 counties, not just the donut. We have to make sure that we get out and talk with people in Sheridan, Indiana, as well as on Main Street and in communities across our state. We have to also make sure that we make a steadfast effort to diversify the recruitment of our candidates. When we've done that in the past, we've been able to have leadership that it resulted in speakers of the House, governors, attorney generals, and other positions. We can do that again. As it relates to the national party, we are the most diverse party ever. We put an African-American female in the White House as vice president. That sets a tone that will ripple all the way through cabinet meetings and things like that.
Yeah.
Lastly, 80 million people voted for Joe Biden. 80 million people. So I don't know what Tony's talking about, buyers or Biden remorse. 80 million people voted for this guy to be president of the United States. That's tremendous.
Tony, what about the tension within the Republican Party over the pandemic and the protocols the governor has put in place? We saw State Representative Christy Stutzman stepping down this week, blasting the governor in the process. How do the politics of the pandemic play out here in Indiana?
Well, you know, you see this across the country. Several Democrat governors and Democrat mayors have taken this way too far. Here in Indiana, you saw in the election, and I think Rainwater, the Libertarian candidate, got 12%. Those are folks, generally, the increase was from people that aren't happy with the restrictions. There's a balance that has to be made. The governor's doing everything he can to save Hoosier lives, and he should be commended for that. At the same time, it's tough on businesses. I think that every worker is essential. So we've got to strike the right balance. We've got to keep working at it. And I think working with the legislature is the right thing to do. And hopefully we'll see maybe an improvement by the end of the legislative session, if not sooner, hopefully.
Rima, your thoughts on how state and local leaders are handling this health crisis?
I think that my heart goes out to all those that have small businesses. I know that I'm married to a small business owner, and it's very difficult right now. I think the times are very, very difficult. I think that we have to, in times of crisis, think about our neighbors. And it's simple. Wash your hands and don't come into gatherings. People are unfortunately not believing in science again, and you see this playing out many, many times. And so I agree with Tony. It's about striking that balance to make sure that we protect jobs, we protect families and homes, and we also make sure that this virus is under control. And I don't think that that's really happening right now.
Continues to be a big issue for local governments as well. This week, you had Carmel Mayor Jim Brainerd, in fact, on a call with the president-elect, talking about that need for more assistance for local governments, too. Our thanks to the panel. Coming up next this Sunday in Focus, one state lawmaker proposing big changes to the way we conduct our elections in Indiana. Stick around. We'll be right back after this.